Welcome back to part 2 of Next on the Tee. We're not done yet. Coming up, more stories, more insight, and more reasons to love this game. Let's dive right back in. Part 2 starts now, right here on Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better.
Hey, Next on the Tee Nation, thank you so much for coming back and pressing play on part 2 of this week's show, featuring my conversation with Morne Botha. Morne is the Chief Executive Officer over at JondoSport, an amazing brand that he came across and Ernie Els has bought into as a sneaky way to get an advantage on your playing partners. What is that? Seeing better. Sunglasses that are going to help you see the grain and the contours of the green better. They're going to block out light. They're going to do a lot of things to help you focus better out on the golf course. What a way to have a kind of a, like I say, a sneaky advantage out there on all of your playing partners. So look, Morne's going to take you through a lot of things. He is also a PGA professional, oh, by the way, from South Africa. So you're going to hear about the early parts of his career. And then we're going to get into the technology and the science. So this isn't just something willy-nilly. There is science behind this thing that Morne's going to take you through to help you understand how this is going to help you play better in real life. Look, these aren't cheap drugstore level sunglasses that your buddies are out there playing in. These are going to help you with depth perception. So you're going to be able to play with them on all the time, not taking them on and off and that sort of thing too. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for pressing play. Sit back, relax, and let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I want to start off by reminding you about our wonderful friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants. I also want to remind you about our wonderful friends over at Squares Golf. Before I bring them into the show, let's talk about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. And don't forget, my friends back in the Berg, if you're from Pittsburgh or just love that blue-collar grit, Steel City's got you covered, literally. From vintage sports tees to iconic Berg designs, their gear is bold, local, and built to last. Check out their stores around Pittsburgh or head to shopsteelcity.com to rep the city in style. Steel City brand, built with blood, sweat, and steel.
Sure, this is golf, but so is this. And this. And this is definitely golf. And so is this. Hey, that's not golf. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. And no matter what your golf is, you're gonna need a store. No, a superstore. A place to get fit for a new club and walk out with it the same day. A place to find the perfect fit. A place to do whatever this is. Because this is golf. And this is golf's superstore.
All right, now making his next on the tee debut with me is Morne Botha. Morne is the Chief Executive Officer at JondoSport, but let me give you a little more background on him prior to that. He is also a PGA professional from South Africa. He started his golf career at Metropolitan Golf Club back in 1999. Then he joined World of Golf as a teaching professional. In 2001, he started his own golf academies alongside of Andries Oosthuzien. He then moved over to Woodhill Country Club. In 2019, he became the general manager at Pecanwood Estates Golf and Country Club, which is a beautiful Jack Nicklaus-designed course with Crenshaw bent grass greens. I'm looking forward to hearing all about that as part of our conversation. He's also done some work with FlightScope, and he has now taken all that experience over to JondoSport, which is one of the premier sunglasses out there on the market. Ernie Els is a brand ambassador, if that tells you how great they are, and I couldn't be more excited. He is joining me this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Morne, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Fantastic, thank you. I want to start our time, and we'll certainly spend a lot of time talking about JondoSport and the great eyewear that you guys have. But I want to start by going back to your time coming into the game, becoming a PGA professional, because I read that when you were a junior golfer, a local PGA professional, Brian Hayes, had a big impact on you, and you thought he had a pretty cool job. Was he the guy that really got you on the path of becoming a PGA professional?
Yeah, Chris, it's actually a great story. You know, when I only started playing golf when I was 14, so a bit late in today's standard for junior golfers. But so I started playing golf. I actually went out to go and caddy for my dad. He had a game booked one Friday afternoon with the bank manager, and he asked me to come along and caddy his bag. And 3 holes into it, I said, "This is boring. I don't like caddying. Can I hit a couple of shots? Can I play 1 hole?" And back in South Africa, from a young age, all kids do or get actually sort of motivated to play all different sports. So from a young age, as a South African, I could hit any moving ball. I could kick a ball. I could run. I could tackle. We could do anything. And but I never played golf. And I said to him, let me play 1 hole. And I'll never forget this. This was back in 1994. And my first hole, I made a drop. And I beat my dad and the bank manager. And the bank manager said, "Why don't you play another hole?" And I made another bogey. And I played 6 holes that day. And I made 6 straight drops in a row. And on the way back, I said to my dad, "Please, I want to play this game. I think I love it." And he just laughed at me and said, "You know what? You're going to do it for a couple of months and then just give it up." I said, "I promise I won't do it. I need a golf set. I want to play." So this was the Friday afternoon. The Saturday morning, we drove to this, I don't know, most awful sports shop ever. And my dad bought me, if I convert our South African currency, the rand, to dollars, he bought me a full set of clubs for $10. It was persimmon woods. It was Ben Hogan blades, some putter, a terrible bag. And he said, "This is all you're getting." And from there, drove straight to the golf course, and I started playing. And in South Africa, golf is so accessible to juniors. On that same day, my dad joined me and bought me a playing card to play, and I literally played golf every single day for that next year. And a year later, I was a scratch golfer.
Wow.
And my dad took me to another club at Swartkrop in Pretoria, South Africa. And this is where I met Brian Hayes, brother of the legend Dale Hayes, who played on the European tour and he had quite a few wins on the European tour. If you know that name, today he's very famous. We call him Mr. Golf in South Africa, broadcaster, presenter. He's got his own TV show and a golf course back in South Africa. So Brian said, "Come, you need a couple of lessons." And I said, "No, we don't have money. I can't afford lessons." And he said, "No, don't worry. I'm not going to charge you. Let's do a couple of lessons." And I was fortunate enough to have those lessons with him. But then also he introduced me to a bunch of unbelievable young golfers, and one of the golfers that I sort of grew up with in that time was Darren Fichart. So Darren Fichart, he's won multiple tournaments on the DP World Tour. He's just turned 50, and he played his first major senior. He played in the US Open at Congressional. What's it now? 2 months ago, and so yeah, I grew up in that era where golf was really accessible. We just loved golf. I gave up all other sports and I just really focused on golf. And ever since that, I don't know how many years, that's now 30 years ago when I started, and I just loved the game ever since.
So let's go back to something that you said, because from getting that first cheap set of clubs, you became a scratch golfer in a year. Were you self-taught at that point? Were you just watching what your father did? How'd you learn how to swing the golf club?
Yeah, so in the town we lived, there was one 9-hole golf course. It wasn't great, no driving range. It was only 9 holes, a chipping green and a putting green, and the only thing I had was a magazine, Golf Digest, and I would read that magazine, from cover to cover. I would carry it with me, and I would have it open on some page, trying to sort of imitate what they were saying in the magazine. So it was 100% self-taught. We didn't even have a golf pro at the club. So, when I was halfway through that first year, the members thought, well, I was the best golfer. I was like a 14, 15 handicapper halfway through that year, and beating everyone. And so there was not really anyone to ask advice. My dad was a 17 handicapper, not a great golfer. He didn't spend a lot of time on his game. But so yeah, magazine open next to me, trying to imitate, a lot of time in front of a mirror. That time in South Africa, we also didn't get great golf coverage either. It was just the local tournaments that was on TV, and maybe a couple of majors. And maybe because of the time difference, South Africa is 6 to 7 hours ahead of South Africa. So by the time, in the afternoons, Sunday afternoon, you play your final around here in America, it was early morning hours, Monday morning, back in South Africa. So it was just learning from a magazine, and a lot of short game, putting and chipping every day. I was so hooked on chipping and putting, so I could up and down and from anywhere, and didn't hit the ball far. My technique was terrible, I'm sure, but I could chip and putt, and that really helped me.
Yeah, indeed. We talk about that all the time. Short game, short game, short game.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned in your intro, in 2001, you started your own golf academies with Andries Oosthuzien. Andries won the South African Amateur Championship in 1973, had a number of runner-up finishes out on the South African and European tours, including one to Gary Player at the General Motors Open, plus a tied for 12th in the 1975 Open Championship. Talk about getting to work alongside of him.
Andries was an amazing person, when I got to meet him, I knew he was this forgotten hero of South Africa. I mean, Gary Player even wrote an article about him saying, he's the next big thing in golf. And Andries was a ball striker. Even when I got to know him, and he sort of stopped playing golf really when we started working together. But whenever you put a club in his hand, you could just see the raw talent and a ball striker of note. So, yeah, Andries has got an amazing story. I think at the age of 18 or 19, he in the Open, he played, and I think he played in the final round with Jack Nicklaus. And, unfortunately, Andries, I think his nerves got to him. and I mean, you hear the story all the time, and I'm sort of saying it tongue in cheek, but when you talk to any sports person who didn't make it at pro level, they always say, if it wasn't for alcohol and girls, I would have made it. That's normally the number one excuse. But Andries, unfortunately, I think had that problem. I'm not sure about the girls, but definitely with alcohol. And he could just drink and drink and drink, and I think it sort of got to him. He went back to South Africa after playing on the European tour then, and decided to take a club job. But so when we met, many years after he obviously played on tour, but when we met, Andries was just this amazing person, a gentle soul. He's a big guy, a lot of wisdom. He taught me so much about the game of golf, and the business we started was really. I played on tour then, and I wasn't a very good tour player. I don't have a drinking or girls problem, but I think I had a loft problem, lack of effing talent. But anyway, so I lost my sponsor, and my idea was to start golf schools to support myself financially. And I met Andries. He was a great coach, and I said, Andries, this is the idea. We need to start a few golf schools, and I really want to focus on kids and development of kids, and try and get them, not to a golf course, but go and fetch them at the school. So literally going to schools and teach children on the school grounds, and then from there do the transition to golf, because at the time, and still is, for many families who don't understand the game, or families that are not members of clubs, they find it intimidating to join a club, to walk in, and just because they don't know really what to do. So for me, that was the purpose, to try and teach as many kids as possible, and then get them into the game of golf, which I love. So yeah, that's how we started. So Andries was an unbelievable person to work with.
Pecanwood Estate Golf and Country Club, a place that you spent some time. Looks like a fantastic facility from what I've seen online. The Nicklaus Golf Course there looks tremendous. What was it like for you being a part of that country club?
Yeah, so that's also a great story for me, because firstly, Pecanwood was the first Jack Nicklaus signature course in Africa, and opened up in, I think it was 98, and really a great golf course. And Mr. Nicklaus did a fantastic job there. And, sort of, I think it's, typical sort of business, golf business in South Africa, especially with the boom of, property and all of that in South Africa. Everyone built golf courses and made it a residential, what we call a estate. So gated community on the golf course. Obviously, with South Africa's challenges with crime, it was really a better option to live in a gated community for safety, first of all. But then when you have a golf course there, it obviously helped with property prices and everything, and it's just fantastic to live on a golf course. So, but how they did that was they actually got a property developer to do the golf course, a guy from Malaysia. And he was friends with Jack Nicklaus, and that's how I got Jack Nicklaus involved in it. And he basically built the golf course, did the property development, and then the sort of law in South Africa is, once you become a community, the homeowners association needs to take over the control of the management of those gated communities. And so that happened, but with no influence or input really or financial input to the golf course. And here by the end of 2007, 2008, with the big economy crash, the property didn't do well, the golf course didn't do well. And for many years after that, they struggled. And this company, the developer from Malaysia, also stopped putting money into the golf course. So when I got there, they basically asked me to come in and assist and to try and turn the golf course around, because from its ranking when it opened up, I think it was ranked 5th in the country, that dropped to outside the top 50, and battled with members that like 170 members at the time. They couldn't get members. They didn't do rounds of golf. They were really struggling, and so they asked me to get in there to try and turn it around. And so yeah, it was a massive challenge to turn it around and try and make it work again. So besides just working at a fantastic facility, it also had a massive challenge for me, which I really enjoyed.
So let's take that a step further, because when I was doing the research on it, I mean, it's located alongside a pretty big dam. I read that you and the team there had a lot of environmental work to do, cleaning up the internal lakes from invasive water plants, plus controlled the mosquitoes because of the dam over there. And to your point, which you just alluded to a moment ago, you were able to get all that work done, increase the membership, increase the number of rounds of golf. Talk about how you went in there and the environmental work you did and what that led to actually, like you just mentioned, turn this whole thing around.
Chris, that dam is actually such a big big attraction in that area. So Pecanwood, or the dam, sits halfway between Johannesburg and Sun City, where they play the Nedbank Challenge. It's about an hour and a half drive outside of Johannesburg, not on a great road. So the main attraction in that area was the dam. And, I was working there probably my first year or so, and I figured out the dam was really in a bad condition, and it was run by the local municipality and the government. And the dam, the situation there really turned ugly. It had hyacinth in, which is an invasive plant, and overnight those plants just grow, and then eventually what happens is you can't get on the dam. It's under cover with hyacinth plant, invasive plant. And if that happens, you've got people don't go to the dam because they can't fish, they can't boat, it's not a pretty sight. So around that dam, all the small businesses suffered. And I thought from our own business, Pecanwood, which was obviously on the dam, if I can play a role in the local community to sort it out, and whatever it was that we had to do, it will not only benefit us, but also benefit everyone around the dam. And Pecanwood was always like the head boy around the dam. So whatever Pecanwood did and say, everyone around the dam sort of followed what we said. So I thought, I need to step up my game and really get involved and try and implement certain practices to try and save it. And I had absolutely no background or knowledge of water or this specific invasive plant. So I really sort of had to get a nice committee together, environmentalists and specialists in it, a university to assist. And we had many programs to try and save the dam and try and make it better. And every time we work on the dam and there's improvement, we just saw the business, the small economy of the town, how that just increased. And so it actually became such a nice project, because you had quite a few people that was really involved in it because their livelihoods were dependent on that dam, really, because that was the attraction. And when people come to the little town to come to the dam, they would eat at the local restaurants or go to the local shops there. And so it was a nice project to get involved with, and it also helped our golf business. But turning the club around was, I think it was just based on, for me, I always thought about, okay, why will a person in Johannesburg get in his car and drive an hour and a half out of town on a terrible road, very dangerous road, actually. Why would they drive all the way to Pecanwood to play a round of golf and then drive back? And our main thing was, well, firstly, when they appointed me there, I said, okay, they need to give me some leeway, and I really want to try and do it the way I want to do it. I don't want to work with a committee or a golf committee or a board. Put me in the hot seat, and I'll make it work. So that was the first thing. So I had a bit of leeway to change things and do things my way. And immediately I focused on just experience. Why would people come out of the city, drive that hour and a half on a bad road? What is it that's going to make them do that? And the first thing for me was just experience. And there was a book I read, can't remember the author, but it was all about elevated experiences. And a study was done actually in Orlando at Disney, where the study showed that, well, this is how they did it. They took a family and they said, all right, every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, they're going to phone them, and they had to give them a rating out of 10. What's their experience? And the first 10 minutes, phone them. So, okay, what's the level of experience there that you experienced? I said, well, 9 out of 10. We're all excited. We can't wait, to get inside. 10 minutes later, phone them again. It's 2 out of 10. Why 2 out? No, we're standing in a long queue trying to get through the gates. And so it carried on. And then, 2 hours later, same thing, it's 3 out of 10. It's very hot here, and, a lot of people. And 10 minutes later, it's 8 out of 10. We just got a stuffed animal, Mickey Mouse or whatever it was. And I said, okay, thank you. And the average score they had over that period was something like, I think it was 6.5 out of 10. Then they phoned them back 3 months later and said, all right, if you had to give us a score out of 10, your overall experience of your visit to Disney, what would it be? And the family said they would definitely give it I think it was an 8.5 out of 10. And the study was basically that when you elevate certain experiences, that goes straight into long-term memory. And people value that, and that's what sticks with them. So their overall experience at 3 months later was 8.5 out of 10. But in the moment, or while they were there, their actual score was only 6.5 out of 10. And I sort of told the story to my staff, and I said, all right, let's go to the gate, to the front gate, and let's go and mark out every single area that we think of that we can just elevate the experience when they get there. And so we walked through every single area in the club, on the golf course, in the locker rooms, in the bar, everywhere. And we really focused on trying to elevate experiences, even till you go through the exit gate. How do we elevate that and to ultimately have that? And immediately when we started implementing that, we saw people raving about the experience and customer service and how friendly everyone was and how thoughtful certain things were that we did. And we started seeing people returning. Immediately our rounds of golf went up. The second thing is offered a membership for people out of town. So from 177 members, within a couple of months, we jumped to just under 1,000 members. The rounds almost doubled. And so that's really what we did. And then from there, it was just almost like momentum. The staff were motivated. And also remember the staff, in South Africa, when you deal with, staff, their backgrounds, it's Africa. They live, some of them live in the woods, in a what do you call it, a shack, made out of tin. They've never been to a restaurant. So for them to really experience 5-star service was difficult, because their reference of what is 5-star is completely different to a visitor that comes to to a top golf course. So it was things like that, to take the staff out, to top restaurants, give them the experience, let them taste it. And things like that really motivated the staff to say, all right, so this is actual 5-star service. Let's try that. And then I organized a DP World event, signature event at Pecanwood, and we changed it again. Same philosophy. How are we going to elevate this? And I had long meetings and many meetings with the European tour, the DP World Tour, to say, listen, I want this big vibe. I want boats on the dam, on the lake, playing music, having a DJ there, almost like a live concept, I suppose. And they weren't happy with the idea. And eventually I said, just trust me. I really want to give this a go, and let's have a look. And it was a major success. At the end of the season, the tour players rated that event as the most enjoyable event they had that season. So it was basics that we implemented, but it all came from just that one thing: try and elevate certain experiences or moments, so that your overall experience will just be a lot greater than it actually was, and that those great moments were sort of captured in the long-term memory. And that's what we did, Chris. Yeah.
Kudos to you. I love every bit of that story. That's fantastic stuff. So let's transition a little bit. Talk about transitioning from that, to JondoSport. How'd you go from being a PGA professional, running golf courses, and elevating an experience for people at that golf course like you just went through? How did you do that? How did you transition from that over to JondoSport?
Yeah, so it's I've always, been I suppose this teacher in me, that I always wanted to teach and help people. And it doesn't matter where I go. If I see someone swing a club and I can see there's something wrong, or I can help, I'll always go up and, don't try and interfere, but I'll always ask first, listen, can I make a comment, and then get involved in it. And not only teaching, but anything that can really help people play better. And I just love great products. And so a friend of mine, he's an optometrist, and the story is he, and another friend of his, they sat and said, listen, there's no, if you look at what's in eyewear for golf, there's actually not the right application for specifically to golf. And there are many brands out there that do golf sunglasses, but they might do it differently to this optometrist opinion. And they developed a technology and started in 2019. Couple of years later, I got involved in a way where I said, listen, I want to take this brand to America. Can I can I basically buy the brand for America? And I just kept it in a sort of, I'll not forgot about it, but I didn't do anything with it. And my wife and I, at a stage said, listen, I think it's time now to make a move and try and immigrate to America. And my wife worked in America as an au pair straight after school. She loved America. I've been to America, the last 10 years, almost every year. Came here to visit, whether it was with FlightScope or going to the PGA show, or with some of my students went to the Pinehurst US Kids World Championships. And I just love America. And my neighbor at the time, we had a barbecue, and he said, his daughters are both in America on a tennis scholarship, and they're also thinking of going to America. And he said to me, isn't there something we can do in golf? I said, well, I've got this amazing product, and I'm sure there's nothing like that in America. So if you're keen to partner with me, and let's start that in America. Let's do it. And that's basically how it started. So it was almost a family dream to live in America, and then obviously just the thing of surround yourself with great people and great products, I suppose. Yeah. So that's how that transition went.
I have to imagine running a company is challenging enough in your home country, but it has to be, I don't know, twice as hard trying to do it in a brand new country. How did you do that?
Yeah, Chris, that is quite challenging. And to be honest with you, I never thought it would be so challenging as it is. Back home, you sort of try and make plans, and it's business plans, business models, this and that, and you've got all your forecasts ready, and then you land here and you start, and it's so exciting and so on. And then straight away it was just new legislation, new ways of doing things. And going to the golf industry itself, I don't know, there was so much red tape in the industry. I've never heard of the phrase merchandiser. I mean, there's not one single merchandiser in South Africa. When I got here, first club I went to, they said, no, you need to speak to the merchandiser. And I was like, well, what's a merchandiser? Is that the person just making the shop look pretty? Or what is it? And they said, no, that's the person that's doing the buying. You need to go through that person. And so it was that. And then the other thing too, you come to such a big country, and there are not just 2 or 3 other competing brands, there are 50 brands. And they all, well, not all of them, but the majority of them are great. They produce fantastic products. So it's very competitive. You need to learn the new business environment, the new laws and taxes and all of that. So it's challenging, but I think, just being a sports guy my whole life, we sort of thrive on challenges and trying to embrace it and work through it and knuckle down and just, do it, pitch up and just keep going. So not for one second was there a thought of, this is too hard or we can't do it. No, I don't think that mindset really exists in sport. So I suppose it's that. Yeah.
It was quite a coup to get Ernie Els on board as a brand ambassador. How'd you meet Ernie?
Yeah, so we went to one of the Champions Tour events in Cary in North Carolina to go and just see the players there. And I've met Ernie a couple of times, when I played and back in South Africa. And I just walked up to him, and he asked me, what you doing here? And I said, no, well, we live here now and started a new company. And we're doing these sunglasses. And he said, oh, okay, nice sunglasses. I said, but you should try them on. And he sort of laughed and said, no, he doesn't play with sunglasses. I said, no, it's fine. Just try them on. Tell me what you think. And this was in the Pro-Am the day before the tournament. And, he put it on the practice green, the putting green. And immediately it was like, wow, this is amazing. He said, what's in it? Is it a scripted lens, or what is it? So I explained the technology of it, and he said, can I play a couple of holes with it now? And I said, yeah, of course. So he played in the Pro-Am, had it on, never took it off. After the round, came to me and said, here's my number, phone me next week. I need to see you in 2 weeks' time in my office. I said, fine, I'll phone you. And so I phoned him, and we set up a meeting, went to his office in West Palm, in Florida, and he had two of his managers there, a business advisor, and he said to his team, he said, you guys need to figure this out, but I want to be part of this company first and foremost, and I want to play with this brand. This is really unbelievable. And so that's how that started. So it was I suppose nothing we didn't expect in terms of the surprise element of the quality of the lens, because it's truly a good product. We didn't expect him to be so involved in the business, so that was really a good one for us. But so it was him putting it on and truly believing in the brand and loving the quality. So that's how that happened.
So let's take that a little bit further, Morne, because the technology in the lenses, the KRISP lenses, as you describe them on your website. Talk about what KRISP is and what that technology allows us to do, like that wowed Ernie, that makes wearing those sunglasses way better than anything else on the market.
Yeah. So firstly, it's a term or technology called spectral filtration. So in short, it's basically allowing light to filtrate through a lens where we don't block light. It's using the light that's available. So that's the sort of, in a nutshell, what happens. But to produce that lens, it's getting all the different materials that you need in the lens. We get it in a fluid form, and then we actually cast every single lens individually in our optometry lab, and from there it gets hand cut, hand fitted into our frames. Now, when you have all the all that product in the lens, there's absolutely no filter, film, or anything over that lens. So it's only the lens. So it's like if you have readers on, or any optometry scripted glass lenses on, it's exactly like that, where it's crystal clear, there's no distortion. And if you take that sort of manufacturing process, now immediately you're working, there's a big distinction between something that gets mass produced and something that gets produced on an optometry standard level. So firstly, it's crystal clear. When you put them on, every single color, everything that you see, just, I don't want to say brighten up, but it's like vivid, clear. You can see really great. And that's what we need in golf. We don't see with our eyes, we see with our brains. So you need to give the brain the right information to make the right decisions. And there's a whole lot of other scientific reasons for allowing the eyes to receive the right and clear sort of picture or image from what you can then make a decision of. So it's a non-polarized lens, secondly. So non-polarization is also super important, because polarization brings in depth perception. Now, for any ball sport, especially fast ball sports, you need true depth perception. And you'll see it quite often, many golfers will play with their sunglasses, but once they get closer to the green, especially chipping and putting or bunkers, they take the glasses off. And that's because you feel uncomfortable when you look down and there's this depth perception issue. So that normally gets caused by polarization. So non-polarized lenses takes all of that away. So it's true depth perception, crystal clear. And then with the light, as I said, by using light, other glasses in the market block light. So when you play in early morning or afternoon or in the shade or overcast weather, you actually have to take those glasses off. It's just too dark. Ours work with the light that's available. So any weather conditions, you can actually keep them on. So whether you play in overcast weather or sunny bright days, or you just play golf and you walk or play in the shade, you keep them on. And with the light that filtrates through that lens, we're then able to filtrate certain colors, so amplify the colors that you need to see in golf. So red, green, blue, yellow, and white. Those colors we sort of amplify. And then the colors that you don't need to see in golf, we block those colors. And that creates a massive color difference when you put it on. And with those colors, that it's almost like HDR when you put it on. You can read the greens better because you can see the grain. You can track the ball through the air a lot better because of the white that now almost sits like HDR in front of the backdrop. So the color contrast is really the main thing there to see a lot better. But the science then goes further than that. And you almost got to look at like the eye is like a camera. So the eye doesn't see. That just takes the information, it captures light and converts that into electrical signals and sends it to the brain. And the brain is the director, editor, interpreter of what it receives. And then from there, there's a visual experience, and that's what we can see. So the blades of grass, might appear lighter or darker, or how the ball sits. So there are so many factors. Once you give the brain the right information and the way the brain needs to see it, that leads to all sorts of very positive things in golf. But by keeping the glasses on while you play, cuts out all eye fatigue. And that's a crucial point here. Because when there's eye fatigue, the brain is there for survival. The brain doesn't know you're playing golf and it's just against your buddies for $5. The brain is there. That's the purpose of the brain, to survive. So immediately the brain, if there's eye fatigue, the brain goes into what we call stress mode, fight or flight mode. It needs to gather more information. And the moment that happens, the fatigue from eyes working or overwork to get more information just drains all the energy. The eyes start wandering around to gather more information to survive. We don't know all of this when we play golf, obviously, but immediately from eye fatigue, it turns into, well, also physical fatigue, but loss of focus that happens. So it's such a crucial part of the game that the right eyewear, the right sunglasses is actually part of your equipment. And it's the link between physical equipment and the brain and the physical, the mental side. So yeah, I would say in a nutshell, I mean, you can ask me a lot of questions if you want to, but that's what makes us, so different. So it's not just a nice pair of sunglasses. It's again back to what I love, a great product that really can help you play better golf. And it's not just a myth or another sales pitch. This is all backed by science.
So let's take something that you mentioned briefly a step further. because, as you know, I mean, we're all always looking for an advantage when we're playing our buddies. And you talked about how there's no distortion, helps with depth perception. But one of the things you touched on briefly was reading the greens better.
Yeah.
I think that's an area that I know my buddies and I struggle with just as it is. Now, if these glasses are going to help us do that even better, talk about, let's go into a little more detail. Talk about how that is.
I think, yeah, the obvious ones that you'll find with the right lenses on is that with the color contrast, immediately what happens is, especially on Bermuda greens, the grain just pops straight away. And, for your average golfer, it's not that easy to always pick up on the grain. It's if you read magazines or you're on YouTube watching a golf tip on reading greens, they just say when it's shiny, it's fast, and when it's
Right.
dark, it's slow. But so that's obviously 100% true. But even within those colors, there are different shades of darker green or lighter green, or more shiny, less shiny, and so on. And with the color contrast, this brings it out. So you can immediately, see the grain a lot better. And then secondly, from that is when you have true depth perception, there's you all of a sudden have a better feel for the slopes on the green too. So just by looking at it, it's true. You now mix that true depth perception with the right colors that you need to see. So the undulations on the greens also becomes for the brain a lot more clear. So, and remember, it's not just the visual that we experience, but it's all these call it pictures that we send to the brain that can now make a better decision, because the brain takes that, what it captures, and it converts that into electrical signals, and those signals go to the body, the muscles, how we feel, everything. So it's engaging the whole body with now more true, better information that we feed the brain. So it's reading the greens, because you can see a lot better. You can see the grain, you can see the undulations better. The brain now engages a lot better with the whole body and the nervous system and so on. And then more importantly, when we talk about putting and true depth perception, the measurement or the distance between where you are or the ball is and the hole and you from the ball itself, that's all true, and that makes it a lot easier to make better adjustment. So it's, and I suppose if you take that and you convert that into golf language, it's about marrying distance control with the right line, and when you have those two, you can make putts. So that's how it sort of helps you with being a better putter, and being a lot more consistent. I mean, anyone can one putt and two putt, but it's, I suppose it's one of those 5 points that Tiger said you need to avoid. Don't three putt. So you got to be consistent, and that's what we're trying to get from this.
And you guys have so many great styles. When I was looking at the website, I have to admit, the Club Champ and the Gimme really jumped out at me as fantastic looking glasses, on top of the fact that the science that you've already explained, now you can also look good while you're out there on the golf course. Talk about the different styles that these glasses come in.
Yeah, Chris, so we don't have a big range. Our sort of philosophy behind it is to say, right, let's keep a small range, and let's base it on performance. And again, performance in terms of we measure what sort of works out in the market, and every single frame, let's put some thought behind it, and see how can the design again try and help or assist the golfer. So our frames or the styles are not really linked to any fashion trends. There are a few that have a few bright colors and different colors, and you might say it's a nice lifestyle frame or leaning towards fashion, but that's not the intent. So we really focus on something that works. So the Club Champ model is the same model that Ernie plays with. Mark Immelman, another one of our ambassadors, he loves it. Gary Christian too. Both those two gents are broadcasters. And the Club Champ is a frame that's got what we call a side wing on the side of on the frame right next to the lens, and that blocks all the horizontal light. So it's almost like a racehorse with blinkers on, where you just sort of keep your focus on what's in front of you. So it blocks all the horizontal light, so blocks more glare, and really keeps you focused on what's in front of you. And then the gimme model is really a nice frame. I like that frame because we're using what we call a gripping technology, and if you look at doing a fitting on eyewear, there's not real specific sizes, so it's more about preference of the individual. So this frame allows any sort of size to really fit nicely with this frame. So somewhere around the head, the temple will grip with that gripping technology. And all our frames were sort of designed with that in mind, the golfer in mind, getting the right sort of weight balance on the frame so it doesn't move when you swing. So it's really lightweight. The gripping technology, as I said, the Dormy model, for instance, has got a thinner temple that really sits nice and snug behind the ears. Many golfers wear their cap sort of low or deep in, and then you've got the glasses, the temples, must it now sit over the cap or under the cap? So those temples are really a thin temple for people that wants to wear it like that. So every single frame is really designed with the golfer in mind.
Morning, before I let you go, now that our listeners are just dying to take a look at these glasses, want to get an advantage over their buddies when they go play golf the next time out, how can we do that? Talk about how we can find you guys online and then follow you on social media as well.
Yeah, so you can online, you can just go to jondosport.com at JONDO sport, SPORT.com. All the models, all the styles are on there. You can have a look there. You can also sign up for our newsletter. It's actually not a newsletter. It's tips from Ernie Els, 50 tips how to visualize and and focus a lot better. So that will help most of the golfers. And on social media too, just search for Jondo Sport or Jondo Sunglasses, and you'll find us there.
Well, Morne, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and be a part of the show. I loved hearing about your career in the game and how you rose up through being a PGA professional and running some golf courses, and then obviously the transition over to JondoSport and learning more about the science behind these glasses and why they are so much better than probably any of the glasses that we're out there utilizing today. I hope we get this privilege of having you back on the show again before too long.
Chris, thanks for having me. It was a real honor, and you're doing a fantastic job. I really enjoy your shows. Thanks, Chris.
I appreciate it. Take care, Morne. All the best to you and your family.
Same to you.
Thank you. That is Morne Botha, folks, of JondoSport. JONDO sport.com is where you can check them out online and on social media. I mean, look, this is, I got to be honest, probably the first time that I have ever hoped that my buddies aren't listening to an episode of this show, because I am so intrigued by these glasses. I got to go out there and check them out and get a pair and really blow my buddies away. Look, one of the things that, and we've talked about it here on this show, that we struggle with, me and my buddies, and I'm sure some of you as well, is reading the greens. I can't tell you how many times that we have said to each other, well, I thought that was going to break the other way. these glasses, I have a really good feeling, are going to help me do that better. Read the green, see the undulation, see the grain, and make more putts. I can't wait to get a pair of those on and to go try that out. I mean, this isn't just, some, like he talked about, just some pitch. I mean, there's science behind this stuff. Science about the information that these glasses are going to allow us to feed into our brains to understand how to do this differently or better. No distortion, better depth perception. And like he says, be able to see the different shades of the grain, right? I mean, we all have heard about, look at the shiny side or the dark side. You can see if you're putting into or against the grain. But to help us do that differently or better, and look, it's not just about reading greens, as he talked about. The depth perception piece and that polarization piece is news to me, that it actually prevents you from having the right depth perception. Maybe that's why we chunk it and thin it as often as we do out there as well. So think about your whole game, right? And as he mentioned, this is kind of like having the 15th club in your bag so that you can do all of these things differently or better. I tell you what, I'm kind of jazzed about this thing. I can't wait to get my hands on a pair of those. And, like I say, amaze my friends that I'm actually making more putts and playing better. And the difference was the glasses that I use when I'm playing. So I'll let you know what I find out. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out again to Dr. Bob Winters, Darren Pang, and Morne Botha for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week are another one of the top mental coaches in our game. Joe Bosco will make his Next on the Tee debut. Our good friend Mark Calcavecchia will be back to help preview this year's Open Championship. And Marcy Komoda, CEO of Proto Concept Golf, will also make his Next on the Tee debut with me. So, folks, it's going to be a great time. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. I want to give another shout out to our great friends over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. For coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com, and you can find this show by then clicking on the Sports section tab, and you're going to find the most recent episode right there front and center for you on the homepage of the Sports section. Or you can click on Sports and then Podcast Network. You'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and many of the most recent episodes from this season are going to be right there for you as well. You can also find this show pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content, including over on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and golfnewsnet.com. And as always, my great thanks to the folks over at Good Pods. Those guys are so awesome. They make Next on the Tee one of their consistently recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there on your favorite device. But like I say all the time, the biggest sincere thanks go out to each and every one of you listening to this show. You guys are the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.